when by the grace of God I became a father. I can by no means say that I was a perfect dad. I think my children would probably attest to that. But talked to my parents, read some books, read a few more books, prayed a lot, and by the grace of God we got through it, and we raised not just one but 4 children. When Sarah began to date, we had a thing in our house where she had to bring the boys over. The boys had to come ask Dad if they could go out. And so when the boys would come over, Dad would ask a series of questions. In fact, the first young man that came over 3 times because he couldn't get the question out if he could date my daughter. But through the process, Sarah was able to see the kind of expectations that I had in a young man. And as she got older, wiser, went off to college, she knew what the expectations were. In fact, she dated some guys that we thought were probably, good material, but she felt otherwise. So when it came time to bring Kyle home, we were pretty confident that she'd done her homework and that she knew that he would meet her expectations. Sometimes it's the unseen qualities in a person that are most important. We believe that it's the person's character that's most important when selecting a mate, when selecting a future spouse. It's your character and it's your identity that defines who you are and who you're going to become. Tomorrow, 2 identities will begin merging into one. And that doesn't mean that each of you have to give up your own identity, but it means that you begin to build a new identity as a family and as a couple that will define who you are. In Genesis chapter 2, God's speaking, and God says, "And for this reason, a man shall leave his mother, and a woman leave her home, and the 2 shall become one." It's been our prayer from the time that Sarah was born that the Lord would provide for her a perfect mate. We prayed for her when she was little that she would be a godly woman. We prayed for her future mate and for his family, that God would raise him in a godly home. And it's our belief that God brought these 2 together. Not because they're perfect individuals, but because together they can bring out the best of each other. There is much about marriage that's going to be difficult, but yet there's going to be much that you can celebrate. You'll be able to celebrate the separations from your family and your time together, your new freedoms. You'll be able to celebrate the new lives that someday you'll bring into this world as children. You'll be able to celebrate your prosperity, your new home, and the collecting of things that somehow seem to be important at the time. But you'll be able to also celebrate a lot of new firsts, things that you'll do together as a couple for the first time. So tonight, rather than just offer a simple toast, I'd like to also offer a blessing. Ask the Lord to bless this marriage, to bless this union. May His favor and His grace always be found in your home. May His love always be found in your hearts. May His word always be a guide and a lamp before you. May His presence bring you comfort when times in life get difficult. May His hedge of protection always keep you safe and guard your home and your possessions. May His forgiveness be present when you disagree, and may His joy be present when you are both in agreement. May He bless you with children and the wisdom to raise them. And may He pour out His prosperity into your life, that you may have more than just contentment, and that all that you would do would prosper. So with that, you have our blessing. Sarah and Kyle.
Cheers. There's my cousin. There's Lori.
Okay, well, it's my turn. It's going to be a little hard to follow because I didn't type mine out, but bear with me. Okay, so in case you don't know me, I'm Hannah, Sarah's sister. good times. I remember we shared a room for a really long time, and we got along most of the time. But, you know, there was this one time where we thought, okay, you know what, we're going to divide the room in half. This one's your half, this one's my half. Well, I had the closet on my half, and she had the door on her half. So we're like, Mom, you can't get in the closet. She's like, well, you can't leave the room. So it wasn't really working out. But we gave in, and we were like, okay, we'll share, because we're sisters. I remember, because our beds were right next to each other, we would have girl talk, but we wouldn't have it like everyone else does. We would lean over on our backs and look over to each other backwards and talk to each other that way. Gosh, there's so many memories. I remember her first boyfriend. I remember sitting outside of my middle school. No, I was in elementary. She was in middle school. Waiting on the steps and like, where's my sister? You know, kind of waiting on her. And there she comes along with her little boyfriend. And I'm like, okay, who's this guy taking my sister? Not cool. So then it happened again with Kyle. No, just kidding. Anyway. I remember hearing about Kyle, but I was actually at camp. I was working at a summer camp, and so I didn't get to meet him for the first time. And so, like, I was really jealous because my cousin and, like, my family, like, I had to hear about him through them. They were, like, mailing me and emailing me, and they're like, oh my gosh, like, Sarah's met this guy named Kyle, and this is how we met, and, like, she didn't tell me anything, thanks a lot. And so I'm, like, just hearing all this stuff, and I was like, okay, who's this Kyle guy? Like, anyway, so I get home, finally we get to meet. Here he plays softball, and so I'm like, hey, kind of cool, I guess. And like eventually I get to know him. He starts coming over a little bit more. Starts getting less afraid of this one right here. And so it turns out to be an okay guy. But anyway, yeah. You're my first friend ever. I'm crying right now. Hopefully you'll be my last. And I know we've had some tough times, but I love you. So, congrats to you too. I'm going to toast you with some coffee. So, oh, I have one now. Alright, so, here's to you guys. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. Cheers. Click. One more. The best man.
Please put this on Facebook for me, okay?
If you insist.
Here's a prepared speech. That's tough to follow. Kyle and I, we grew up playing Little League ball together. We used to have real good times. The thing that makes Kyle and I work well as friends is the ability to know you can depend on the person. You know, you have the reliable, dependable, that'd be Kyle. You can go out with Kyle as a woman, you can hang out with Kyle as a guy, and know Kyle you're going to be hanging out with day in, day out. There's a lot of consistency there that allows you to really be able to get close to Kyle. Even if you feel like he's not letting you in on all the emotions that he has, you know who Kyle is day in and day out. And I've been around Kyle since I was 13, and he was my best buddy. We hung out quite a bit, drank our fair share of beer, went to ball games, just boys will be boys time. And the great thing about meeting a woman is, I think Pat noted on it, but the great thing about meeting a woman and being a guy is, as guys, we do a lot of really ridiculous things trying to find ourselves. And women, they date a lot of guys trying to find the right guy in themselves. And Kyle, I think, has ended up crossing paths and kind of colliding with the woman that he feels is his soulmate. And I was lucky enough to find my soulmate back in 2003, I think. The finding of a soulmate, when you look back on it, is really almost the next thing to a miracle. The only thing I could sit there and say is more of a miracle, more of a needle in a haystack type event is probably having children. You know, when you see your firstborn child, you sit there and you think, how in the world can something like this ever really happen to me? How can we make something this amazing? It's just a miracle. You can't even really explain it. Finding your soulmate is about that next thing, is about like a miracle. And Kyle and Sarah, they found each other. And the paths, you know, I look at it as almost two people just finding their way, and all of a sudden these paths cross and they meet and they decide to give up those paths that were what they are before, start making one path. And that's kind of what Pat was talking about. And as that path becomes one, you have to decide to make common goals, you know, diet together, whether it's losing weight or just the type of food you eat. You do it together. You sleep in the same bed. You make one home. You do the same activities. You go to the same ball games. And I think if you can keep those common goals and keep that one path and feel good about being on that path with each other, it'll stay soulmates. You guys will have a long, happy relationship. And I think everyone in here is really proud of you, Kyle, Sarah. I think you guys will create something very beautiful on one path. Congratulations, Phil.
My drinking buddy over here. That was good. Did you go to college?
Yeah. That's funny,
Anybody else?
Don't expect the groom's family to say anything.